The government of the Republic of Zambia has over the years supported the agricultural sector through crop production and ensuring the safe storage of the nation's produce. One of the crops that government has supported is the production of maize. Through the Farmer Input Support Program, government has provided seed and fertilizer to small-scale farmers and thereby increasing production. The Food Reserve Agency is mandated to ensure that the nation's produce is stored safely and securely by managing the agricultural storage facilities.
Indeed, with that preamble, Msiwa Mkololo, the Monitoring and Evaluation Officer at the Food Reserve Agency, joins us once again on this production. I would like to find out from you, how safe is our national strategic reserves and where are we in terms of storage space as a country?
Thank you very much, and indeed, welcome to our Food Reserve Agency headquarters.
Thank you.
Indeed, and with our storage facility and our national reserves in our hands, they're very safe. They're very safe, and that we can show by the level of even the stock losses that we are now at. That is about 0.002%. That's beating the industry level of 5%. So indeed, our national strategic food reserves are very safe. In terms of our national storage capacity, sitting with FRA, we are at 856,500 metric tons. That's the level that we are standing at in terms of the storage capacity of our national produce, or should I simply say our strategic food reserves. Indeed.
Is the storage capacity of 856,500 metric tons able to match up with national production?
Over time, you notice that we have been able to invest more in terms of infrastructure in the southern part, because these are where the food baskets of the country. So what we are reflecting there, I would want to show the pattern in terms of the areas where we have much of investment in terms of storage, as well as the highest production producers in terms of grain for the past 7 years. Okay. So now going further, you note that I'll take the question in two themes. The storage part against production, and also the storage part against the purchases. Then the third theme will be the storage part against the sales, because there is an interplay in these three areas that these three themes that I've just mentioned. We need the storage infrastructure in areas where we want to where there's more production. We also need storage infrastructure where we position for sales of these stocks.
Understood.
So now, when you look at the Western Province, our level there in terms of our purchases for the past 7 years, it gives an average of about 6%, 6,000 metric tons in terms of maize grain that we've been able to get from there. Our storage infrastructure is at a level of 19,000 metric tons. So when we talk of Western Province, we are very comfortable in terms of national storage infrastructure and also the average purchases that we get from that province. When we look at Southern Province, this is the part where we have been always consistently, the region has been producing more, and much more investments were made in terms of storage infrastructure. So Southern Province, we are comfortable in terms of the storage capacity that is in those areas. As you can see, our average purchase from that area is about 52,000 metric tons, against a level of 145,000 metric tons in terms of storage capacity. So we are comfortable in the southern part when it comes to securing what we have procured for the nation. We look at Lusaka. Lusaka, we have much more storage infrastructure. We are at a level of 123,000 metric tons, and our purchase level is only 19,000 metric tons in Lusaka. We don't buy much of the grain here in Lusaka, so you note that we are very comfortable in terms of keeping safe what we procure. Then we look at Eastern Province. Eastern Province has, we have a storage investment to a level of 135,000 metric tons, and there we are able to buy on annual basis about 85,000 metric tons of maize. So now when we look at another province is Central. Central, we have much more storage infrastructure there. We're comfortable with about 82,000 metric tons, and there our average purchase is only about 43,000 metric tons. So now, what we have discussed so far, these are the provinces in the southern part of the country. These are the provinces in the southern part of the country, and when you look at them, much of the investments has been made in terms of infrastructure in the southern part. When we look at the northern part, we start looking at the northwestern province. Northwestern province, you know, the culture in the northern part of Zambia has not been that of maize production, or should I say farming. The culture there has been, for example, when we talk of Luapula areas, it's been that of fish farming or fishing there, and much of other economic activities apart from the production of maize. So you realize that over time, little investment was directed to the northern part of the country. So when you look at northwestern province, we have a total available usable space of about 23,000 metric tons there. And the annual average that we get from that region is about 33,000 metric tons of crop in terms of maize grain. So there we can say we have a shortfall in terms of storage capacity in the northwestern province. And the shortfall there is about 10,000 metric tons. When you look at Copper Belt, I'll add to the situation to Lusaka. Lusaka and Copper Belt, these are consumption areas where we need much more of storage space, so that we are able to provide or strategically position our crop there in terms of the sales. Then when we look at another province, which is Luapula, you will note that the storage capacity that we have there is around 21,000 metric tons of usable space, and our annual average purchases in those areas in Luapula, we are starting at a level of 51,000 metric tons. So in Luapula, we are saying we have a deficit of about 30,000 metric tons of space. So yeah, this is an area where we actually need much more in terms of storage investments. When we come to Northern Province, we are at a level of 50,000 metric tons, and our annual purchases in that area in terms of maize, we are at 83,000 metric tons. That is an average there. So now that spells out clearly that we have a shortage in terms of storage space in Northern Province of about 33,000 metric tons. Then finally, we want to look at the storage space that is available in Mchinga, and you will note that in Mchinga we have about our space of about 34,000 metric tons, and there on average we buy about 59,000 metric tons of maize. So there we have a deficit of about 25,000 metric tons. So at the end of the day, we want this presentation also to guide in terms of investment and point out the areas where we need much more investment in terms of storage infrastructure. So we're actually saying now these are opportunities for the private sector to fly over to those areas and be able to make much more investments in terms of storage. Indeed.
So in this case, you're saying there is a lot of room for the private sector to play a role in storage?
These are opportunities for the private sector to fly over to those areas and be able to make much more investments in terms of storage. Indeed. Thank you very much on that.
So when we look at all these storage, how do we compare this with storage in consumption areas?
Indeed. To pick on that one, you note that FRA's sales in terms of grain happens around along the line of rail. This is where much of the millers are located. And you note that we have then to move this consignment from where it is produced to position it strategically along the line of rail so that we are able to supply in terms of grain, those that we wanted for consumption. So you realize that with that demand, there is a requirement for storage space so that the crop is strategically positioned. So now, going further, to give you the gravity of what happens along the line of rail and in terms of our sales, you see that much of our sales, we have an average of about 290,000 metric tons that we sell just within Lusaka. So now, that requires a huge amount of space to make this crop available for the population of Lusaka or for the consumption pattern in Lusaka. And please take note, what we are discussing in terms of these sales, these are commercial sales only. And commercial sales, these are sales that we provide to millers and also the grain traders. So another area where we have much more consumption is on the copper belt, where we have about an average of 39,000 metric tons of, that is annual sales that is conducted in those areas.
With all the explanation, what is it that you'd like to say in conclusion in order for our viewers out there to really give this explanation an appreciation?
Without the government investment there, or the FRA's investment in storage there, the immediate solution that we look for or we go for is the storage infrastructure owned by the private sector, so that we can immediately secure the crop. And we have a very short operating window in terms of from when we open the markets to the onset of the rains. So we actually are on a task to secure this crop in the shortest possible time. And to do that, we need storage infrastructure in the nearest location as where the crop is produced. So indeed, it's right to say that our private sector can go over in those areas and be able to make much more investments in terms of storage infrastructure.
Interesting. Msiwa Nkololo, the Monitoring and Evaluation Officer at the Food Reserve Agency, giving us an appreciation of what it takes for all these elements and how they interplay in order for grain to move from one position to the other till it gets to its final destination. And we're talking about storage, purchases, sales, and all that goes into securing, positioning, and cost of grain. This has been our edition of our Food Reserve today, and would like to thank our crew for being in position to ensure that they produce this wonderful and exciting production for you. Thanks very much for viewing the production. My name is Alec Ngala in Lusaka, and we'll see you next time at the same time. Goodbye for now.